Keep in mind that the purpose of saving is to supplement your future income, not your present one. Today, we're going to talk about something sneaky, something that might be holding you back from financial success without you even realizing it. Going toe, we're calling it the silent wealth killer. Inflation is a major deterrent to saving money. It is characterized as the silent killer because of the gradual erosion of our money's purchasing value. Inflation has a tiny impact on our lives, making it easy to overlook from year to year, but its long-term repercussions can be serious. Inflation raises the price of products and services, lowering the standard of living to the point where people must earn more money just to maintain the same lifestyle. The solution for shielding your assets and savings accounts from inflation is straightforward and includes some basic math. If you earn 2% on a bank CD and inflation is at 2%, you have virtually broken even. You would not have made or lost any money. However, taxes are required on the 2% of earnings, resulting in a net loss. So simply keeping up with inflation is insufficient. You must earn more than the predicted rate of inflation plus taxes. As you can see, calculating your break-even point is simple, but I believe that for the majority of individuals, simply breaking even is not what they see for their financial future. I would argue that many people want to see their money grow over time in order to build riches for the future. In terms of money, inflation can give you a false sense of what you will need in the future. For example, a 2% inflation rate may seem small, even irrelevant, but when you multiply this reality over a 10-year period, it becomes 20% or 20 cents on a dollar. This means that if you were to experience 2% compound annual inflation, a $50,000 salary today would need to earn $59,754 in 10 years. To maintain the same standard of living, if you were to retire in 20 years from your current salary of $50,000, you would require $72,840 in income. It is crucial to realize that in 20 years, $108,237 will be required to maintain the same standard of living that your current $50,000 will provide. Consequently, keep in mind that you are saving to replace your future income, not your current income, when calculating how much money you need to save. Many times, it might be challenging to understand the notion of inflation. Although its effects are evident, most people find it difficult to understand how it is made. 20%, we will discover the causes and mechanisms of inflation in the remaining sections of this chapter. This will assist you with developing a fundamental grasp of corporate operations, the Federal Reserve, our government, and the cost of goods and services. It can help dispel a lot of myths about how our economy functions and give you a better grasp of just how interwoven everything is. Supply and demand. If you have ever needed or desired something that was hard to come by, you probably remember how hard it was to locate the item. The thing you desired was restricted in supply since other people wanted and were purchasing it as well. Retailers and manufacturers frequently raise the price of their products to profit from situations where there is a limited supply of an item that is in great demand. Nonetheless, a balance between supply and demand frequently keeps prices stable. If there is a large demand for a product, a corporation will make more to meet the demand rather than purposefully producing more than they think they can sell. An illustration of this in action is the global oil supply. Given that the majority of us need to fuel our cars, oil is in high demand. In order for the next person to fill up, more oil must be generated as we fill up our gas tanks. Depending on how much gasoline is being consumed, the amount of oil that is pumped out of the ground to make it is regulated. The oil is removed from the earth and supplied to the market at a sufficient volume to meet demand, but it is maintained at a sufficient level to maintain price stability. A sudden shortage of fuel would undoubtedly result in a sharp increase in the price of a gallon of gas due to the increased demand for fuel. Two things to know about oil are that it is very political and that its impact on the global economy is substantial. The price of a gallon of gas is influenced by the exchange rate between our currency and an oil-producing nation. Because oil is traded internationally in US dollars, gas prices rise in tandem with a weaker dollar and a wider exchange rate. This is where inflation first started, which means that individuals have less money to spend on other things, which hurts the economy. Consider the following scenario. You own a small business that needs to carry widgets from one location to another. If the price of a gallon of gas rises, so do your fuel costs, which in turn raise your transportation costs. To prevent losing money, you must offset this rise by lowering your expenses and raising revenue. This is performed by slashing jobs, closing facilities, and raising the cost of your widgets. This results in an increase in the cost of purchasing the gadget, forcing users to cut back on other family expenses. People are now spending less money on goods and services, causing corporations to sell insufficient quantities of their products, forcing them to slash more jobs and hike their prices. The consequences are an endless cycle of job losses and price rises. When this begins to happen, the government steps in. Government. I read How Privatized Banking Really Works by L. Carlos Lara and Robert P. Murphy, which does an excellent job of explaining the United States banking system. In the book, the writers use the ancient Roman Empire as an example to show the influence of inflation and currency devaluation on an economy. The book analyzes the damaging processes of government and their impact on our daily life. The authors cited Caesar, the old Roman Empire's king, as an example in their book. I shall simplify their case here by stating that Caesar was a man notorious for his excesses and power. The key to his success was his military, which he utilized to invade adjacent areas and seize their possessions, as well as impose tax collection from the population. The gained money, as well as the taxes collected, were utilized to expand and fund his military, architecture, and infrastructure projects. Over time, Caesar discovered that he was not collecting enough gold from the people of Rome to meet the requirements and expenses of his empire, so he had a choice/expenditures or shrink the size of his government. He did not want to do either, so he decided to keep doing what he was doing and cover his expenses by making more money. Caesar shaved his gold coins to create new coins, which he then used to pay for goods and services. He controlled the coinage used for commerce in his realm, attempting to pass off counterfeit coins as the original. The consequence was an increase in his bank account, allowing him to continue operating without decreasing costs. However, this backfired on him when merchants received the new coinage for products and services and saw that they were smaller. Merchants responded to the lighter coins by demanding 2 coins for the same goods and services. Caesar eventually faced another year of deficit expenditure and responded in the same way. He attempted to counterfeit the coins again, but the merchants replied by adding safety mechanisms to the coins that made it easy to detect if they had been altered. Now that he could not lessen the size of the coins, Caesar decided to melt them all down and then recreate them with a mix of gold and another metal to make additional money. Caesar repeated this technique until the coins contained less than 1% gold, making the money worthless. We all know what happened to Rome, and sadly, our current administration is repeating the Romans' mistakes by spending at unsustainable rates. The United States of America utilized actual gold and silver as currency until switching to paper certificates for ease of transportation. The certificate promised that there was gold somewhere to back up its worth. Meanwhile, our government gradually reduced the amount of silver in our coins, eventually deleting it entirely. Finally, the government abolished the gold standard, causing our money to lose value in comparison to gold. The money we use today is known as fiat money, or money created out of thin air. It is a type of currency issued and controlled by governments all over the world in order to meet their obligations. This means that if the government needs more money, it can manufacture it. Because the government appears to be constantly in need of more and more money, it appears to be creating an increasing amount. This process devalues our currency, which fuels inflation. I previously described how rising gasoline prices can cause a domino effect, ultimately leading to inflation and job losses. These are contributing factors to government participation because lowering income and spending affects the amount of tax revenue collected. You would expect that the government would reduce its spending in the same way that you and I would if our income was reduced, but this is not how our government operates. You would assume that the simple solution is to raise taxes, which our government does on a regular basis, both directly and indirectly, but they also understand that they can only tax their population so much before there is a revolution. There is a limit to how much they can push us to pay without causing further problems, leaving them holding the proverbial bag and unable to meet their responsibilities. So, just like Caesar, they generate more money by literally printing more currency. How then do they accomplish this? It is hard to explain, but basically this is how it works. The Federal Reserve Bank receives an IOU from the government, just like you would if you went to the bank to borrow money to buy anything. They pledge to pay back the funds with interest to the Federal Reserve. Our government then utilizes the money that the Federal Reserve lends it to pay its bills. As a result of this process, which benefits the government by flooding the economy with new money, the value of the dollars that are already in circulation decreases, much to the consequences of Caesar's policies in ancient Rome. The most important lesson to learn from this is that money is created by the Federal Reserve and then transferred to the government. This is what has been referred to as quantitative easing or stimulus in recent years. Another issue that constantly floods the system with money is fractional reserve banking. Recall that following Caesar's manipulation of the coinage to flood the market, the merchants wanted more money for the same goods and services. This is still the case in the current era, but we need to consider the wider picture. Global trade involves the exchange of goods and services, including oil. The exchange rate between currencies is one way in which inflation can enter the system. If we buy oil from Saudi Arabia, their competitors' exchange rate against our dollar may be low, causing them to charge more for the oil. This applies to both gold and silver. As the value of the dollar falls, the value of gold, silver, and other precious metals rises. It is all about conversion rates, supply and demand, and government policies. Though simplified but still intricate, these are some of the components that contribute to inflation. The issue of inflation is not worth focusing on because you have little control over how it is formed. However, being aware of its existence is critical in preventing the erosion of your money's purchasing power. This entails saving more money to get to retirement and maintain your lifestyle during retirement. If you found this video helpful, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more personal finance tips. In the comments below, share your best strategies for staying on budget and avoiding the silent wealth killer. Let's build a community of financially savvy individuals together.